And I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that there are tools out there to help you cope with just this kind of situation. And that, we overlook the fact that if you can get every ounce of efficiency out of the small staff that you have, maybe that'll help you bridge the gap between a shortage of personnel and to the time when you can get fully staffed again. So I think that folks have to take that into account as well.
Welcome to the Wireless Communications Explained podcast, where IT, engineering, and operations professionals learn about wireless communications. This includes how to develop true dispatch communications, implement and manage communication tools, improve one-to-many communication, keep up to date with security and customer satisfaction trends, increase coverage and range, and roll out push-to-talk technology. Now, here are your hosts, Chaz Elliott of EMCI Wireless and Mike Humphreys of Consult Consulting Solutions.
Welcome to this episode of Wireless Communications Explained. Today we're going to be talking all about how to address hotel staffing shortages with better wireless communications. I'm here with Chaz Elliott, President of EMCI Wireless, and Mike Humphreys, President of Consult Communications. Glad to see you, Chaz and Mike.
Good to see you too.
So kind of the whole backdrop here of how to address what's going on with hotel staffing shortages with better wireless communications came about because just a few weeks ago, the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg ran several articles painting a challenging picture going on in the hotel industry. Like the Wall Street Journal, for example, said staffing shortages pose a threat to hotels' budding recovery. Hotels say they are struggling to hire enough housekeepers, kitchen staff, and other hourly workers, including those laid off early in the pandemic. And then just more recently, being passed around on LinkedIn news, hospitality staff quitting in droves. The hospitality industry is facing a multitude of challenges. The nation's rampant labor shortage has been a hot button topic, and today we're seeing something else. New government data reveals workers in hotels and restaurants are quitting at an alarming rate, with numbers especially acute in food services. In April, 5.6% of workers in accommodation and food service industry left their jobs, up from 5.4% last month and reaching record territory. So given all of that, a great place to start would be to talk about how hotels use wireless communications and which staff members in particular do you see using wireless communications most often?
I think that, really they use it everywhere, right? Everywhere from the front desk clerk to, talking to the maintenance staff, talking to the janitorial staff, looking for, availability of rooms, did we get this issue fixed? As well as, from an administration standpoint, just trying to ensure the overall guest experience, is as smooth as possible. So if you need more towels, they can radio somebody else, right? Being able to, conventions and meetings at the hotel, it gives them a perfect opportunity to be able to use wireless communications to traverse, a large geographical area there on the campus.
Yeah, I think it's actually one of those classic situations where you see these multiple departments with multiple functions that all have a need to communicate instantaneously for both guest experience and efficiency and just overall control. And it really does, it goes all the way across the spectrum as far as the actual facility is concerned.
What do you think the staff members would do if they didn't have wireless communications available? What would be the alternative? Would they just be making phone calls to each other? Would they be running messages around, hunting down people in different parts of the building, different parts of the campus?
Yeah, my first inclination is to say hide out. That probably wouldn't be appropriate. So, I think that they chase people around a lot, or they use cell phones, or they use any method they can to try to find people in whatever way they can, whether it's efficient or not. But they just try to do the best with what they have.
Is this something that you think would go back decades? Is this potentially how hotels always got requests around to different staff members, or is this something where they've more recently in the last decade or so started to use two-way radios and wireless more effectively?
I could let Mike to speak to that. He's got a, a little more history under his belt.
I have more decades to refer to. Is what he's saying. I think that's what it is. No, it's been around a while. I mean, radios have been very popular as a method of communicating in hotels for quite some time. Probably as soon as they became more prevalent and the prices began to come down to reasonable levels back in even going back as far as the 80s and 90s, that they got smaller and they became more palatable as far as pricing goes and things of that nature. And of course, that was all pre-cell phone anyway back then, and there was no other way really to effectively communicate. But I think they've been around a long time, but I think that there's probably been the same misconception as there is everywhere, that smartphones and tablets have replaced the need for two-way radios. So there's been a landscape shift as far as that goes.
Do you see much of a difference in the usage between small hotels with like 150 rooms and hotels with hundreds of rooms that are more resorts or have convention centers, small convention business attached or banquet business attached?
Absolutely. Absolutely. For two reasons. Number one, they don't have nearly the need to communicate in a small hotel. If you've got a 4 or a 6-story business hotel that may have one maintenance person and, a handful of housekeepers running around, and that's it. The need for communication is not as robust. They may not even have an airport shuttle or anything that they have to communicate with offsite. So the need is there to communicate, but you often see some lower end product, less expensive product, things that just kind of get them through as far as being able to talk instantaneously with somebody. Whereas when you get into a larger hotel property or a resort that does have all of the different departments, including, banquet and entertainment and events rather, and large maintenance staffs and security staffs and large housekeeping staffs, then it certainly scales up dramatically from there.
So given what's going on now with hotel managers, hotel operators potentially facing the challenges of running their properties with a lot less staff than they're used to, even with strong demand, what do they do? And is there a silver lining in being able to use two-way radios, wireless communications more effectively?
Yeah, I think really it's technology in general, right? Wireless communications are just one more piece of your technology portfolio that you're using to run your business more efficiently. Overall, I mean, no matter what the industry is, but certainly in the hospitality industry, they need to be able to operate as efficiently as possible. So being able to do work tickets, for example, on a radio where you press a button and it goes back to the front desk clerk and their software system to basically show that, hey, room 101 is clean now, or I'm arriving to clean room 101. You can press one touch of a button and be able to send those types of messages back and forth. Makes it a lot more efficient than calling somebody or writing it up in a software application somewhere. You just need to be able to stretch your dollars further.
Yeah,
so
sorry, Joshua.
I was just going to say, so this sounds like it's quite different than just using traditional voice. You're using apps, software as well, to be able to drive productivity.
Yes. Yeah. You marry up both, right? I mean, there are times where you're on the fly, your hands are full, and being able to just talk with voice makes all the difference in the world. And there are other times where you need to be able to quickly have some level of data, go back and forth to send an instant message there, or to to record something and have it go back to the front desk. Being able to take a picture of something and send it back to the front desk, and so they can actually see right there. We have the ability, some of the radios now have cameras built in them. So being able to snap a picture, send it back to the front desk and show them what you're looking at, puts a whole, the picture's worth 1,000 words, scenario.
So it sounds like there's some features and some technology that some operators may be more aware of than others when it comes to making sure that you have the right tools to be able to drive this efficiency and cover more ground with fewer staff.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Go ahead, Mike.
Now, we used to, in the communications industry, and particularly land mobile radio side of it, we always had the joke that we were a recession-proof industry. And we used to say that jokingly because Obviously, when times are robust and things are going well and everybody is rolling in money and they're very busy, then they look for ways to communicate more effectively and kind of control all of that activity. But on the other side, and it's kind of what the hospitality world is facing right now, when you're short-staffed, when things are tight and tough, but you still have to respond to your customers, it's almost more critical to look at effective communications right now than it is when times are great and robust and you're going wide open. And I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that there are tools out there to help you cope with just this kind of situation. And that, we overlook the fact that if you can get every ounce of efficiency out of the small staff that you have, maybe that'll help you bridge the gap between a shortage of personnel into the time when you can get fully staffed again. So I think that folks have to take that into account as well.
When I think too about the attrition and the difficulty retaining staff at hotels, I'm wondering if, like, with trying to get more productivity out of them, the normal reaction probably is to manage more vigorously, keep tabs on what they're doing, making sure that people aren't excessive breaks, goofing off, whatever. But is part of the solution really just giving them better technology so you can get more done without burning out your team?
No, I think absolutely. Yeah, it's not just get more work out of them, but make it easier for them to get more effective work out of them. And that way it's not a burden on the employee. It's actually a tool to help them.
So when you think about hotel operators, what do you see as the biggest mistake that they're making when it comes to how they use wireless communications?
I think you've really holistically, there's a number of solutions out there, right? You need somebody that can act as a technology consultant on your behalf. Not everybody is, technology isn't necessarily their thing, right? And to be able to have access to resources that you can lean on, that can, talk about what other folks in your similar industry are doing and how they're accomplishing, certain tasks, and somebody that you can ask, hey, I've got this hurdle. How do I overcome it? Being able to have somebody, a consultant that you can lean on, I think goes a long way. And having that, trusted advisor, if you will, to talk to you about the technological solutions that are out there, because you can be, way over on one side of the spectrum or, way over on the other. And the truth is, maybe you need to be somewhere in between. And, having that partner you can lean on makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, most of these solutions have a place, whether it's smartphone, tablet, land mobile radio, two-way radio, or whatever the case may be. They all have a specific function that they can fulfill. And I think that's, to Chaz's point, it's just having somebody to help you navigate when is the right time to use which of those tools and how do they integrate and work together most effectively. And that I think that's the key right there.
It's understanding the true needs of the team, where the bottlenecks are, where they're struggling with the most, and then making sure that they understand the pros and cons of different levels of investment in technology.
Right. Then they can make the decision in an informed way and not, based on a bias one way or the other, but they have all the information now. They can make their own choice. When you think about hotel operators as a whole, do you think they have the right technology in place to provide a better guest experience, to provide a safer guest experience? Or do you feel there's certain gaps that they need to fill that are really standing in the way of being able to achieve that?
I'll let you take that one, Mike.
I think it's situational. I think there certainly are a lot of places out there that have advanced technology. They're taking full advantage of it, no question about it. But I think by and large, that there's a tremendous amount of technology that people could take advantage of that they either aren't aware of, because we haven't done a great job of educating them to that fact, or they're convinced that what they're using now is the latest, greatest, and the highest level of technology evolution that they can possibly get, and they don't look further. So I think that there are some mistakes and some errors that are made in that regard, and it's probably an industry problem, an industry failing, because we allow marketing to take over, and whatever that message, and I say that, Joshua, so you appreciate that, right? Whatever that message happens to be that one entity wants to promote seems to be the truth of the day. And if they do a better job of marketing it than somebody else, then you may not necessarily get the right impression. So I think we have to do a better job from an education standpoint. I think we have to do a better job.
It's actually proven to be an endemic problem within the hotel industry, probably going back 10 years, is that so many of the websites, so much of the digital marketing struggles to really stand out. And one of the tiebreakers in a lot of cases is what other people say about the experience of staying at the hotel or doing business with the hotel. It all comes back to the guest experience.
Absolutely. They pay the bills, right?
Absolutely. So what advice would you offer to a hotel manager or owner that wants to improve how their location or locations that they're overseeing use wireless communications as a whole? Do you think they're seeing the big picture, or do they still see this as like a discrete piece of hardware that they're purchasing?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I mean, you have some folks that, remember the way that they did it, 20 years ago with just two-way radio voice. And you have other folks that are, thinking that maybe a cell phone or a tablet is the way to go. Really, that's, again, to go back to my, kind of previous point here, having somebody that can kind of help you navigate those technological waters, if you will, makes all the difference in the world, because, there are things that you may look at, a tablet or a cell phone and say, hey, great, you can put that smartphone application on there. And we could, that's a simple thing that everybody does, putting an application on their device. But the minute that you have, one of your guests that's checking in at the front desk and they're watching your front desk clerk type on a tablet or a smartphone, they're thinking that, the immediate perception is that maybe they're using it for personal use. Whereas when you've got a purpose-built device, like some of the products that we offer as far as two-way radio, land mobile devices, having an application on that, it very much gives the perception that this is a business-oriented solution. It's not a personal device.
I think there's another issue that a lot of mistakes happen because people don't really take into account true cost of ownership. When you get into this type of conversation, the first thing that people want to take a look at is, wait a minute, so I have to buy all of this hardware and all of this equipment and all of this infrastructure for this two-way radio or the land mobile radio type of solution when I can just get a monthly bill from a carrier and they'll wrap the product into it. And it's simple and easy. And I write a check every month for the equipment. And by not looking at the big picture and not having all of the information, I think the mistake that's made is the assumption is that that's cheaper and that's more cost effective, and I get a better return on my investment because I know exactly on the month what it's going to cost, and I'm not writing a big check on the front end, right? And they may not know about other options that they can look at from a hardware standpoint, whether it's leasing or other ways that they can massage and work that. But without comparing, the real kind of the business case or the cost justification example of both of those pros and cons of both, they're not seeing the full picture again. And I think that is one of the mistakes that happens regularly.
Brings up some related thoughts too on the pros and cons of a purpose-built device for wireless communications versus the default option that probably people would think of just using a smartphone or using a tablet. Are they thinking about security? Are they thinking about battery life? Are there any other big picture concerns that an IT professional would be asking about if they were looped into this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that a lot of folks are, to be honest with you, when they're, if you're looping in if you've got a large, hotel corporation that's running a number of facilities, right? They probably have their own dedicated technology group that are looking at security concerns and applications and bandwidth utilization and all these things. But a lot of what we see day to day is decisions being made by a hotel general manager, and this may or may not be their forte. So there's a lot that has to be considered. Everything from obviously the guest experience to how well the solution works. So it's definitely a wide breadth of options that are out there.
You're like a typical small business owner wearing a half a dozen different hats at time they're probably expected to be an expert on why the cardio equipment in the gym isn't working, or why the pool heater broke for the 14th time this year, or why there's a roof leak, or
Absolutely.
labor issues, zoning issues.
Yep.
Yeah, IT is another one of their hats. So the final area that I wanted to dive into today is in an area where everyone seems to be asking popular review websites like Tripadvisor, hotels.com, Expedia, or just a Google review or a Facebook review. All factors into people deciding where to stay. How does the guest experience and social proofs and reviews factor into these kinds of wireless investments? And is there a marketing component or potentially marketing and sales ROI that should be considered along with just the IT infrastructure?
Yeah, I think that that's the thing that really matters, is the guest experience component, and then relating that to whether it's rapid response, whether it is to Chaz's earlier point about the fact that they see employees and staff using technology that is obviously a business tool, and see them using that in front of them to get answers to questions or to get responses to issues. And that's going to play over into all of the different social proof, into all of the different reviews and all the different situations where they're going to make the comment. It wasn't just a great friendly staff. I didn't just enjoy the interactions with the staff, but they responded immediately. They had technology that helped them solve problems quickly. And they may not speak that directly in a review that they had technology, but they will have recognized and noticed it, I think. And I think that right now, always, but particularly right now, when there's a heavy amount of competition to get these folks that are starting to travel again to your hotel or to your resort or to your property, that's going to become a big selling point. And I think that's going to have a marketing component to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything boils down to the overall guest experience, right? And that's what they're leaving that rating based on. I mean, if I walk into a hotel, no matter how nice it is, I walk in there and I see a 32-inch TV that's, an old tube style TV, right? I'm immediately going to have an impression, that, hey, maybe they're not up to snuff on their technology there,
Wi-Fi,
Yeah, Wi-Fi. Yeah, as soon as you try to use it, right?
Get the dial-up going.
Especially in this day and age when you're trying to do, a video call or what have you, right? I mean, bandwidth concerns are real. So that's, there's a lot that needs to be taken into account when they're looking at that, the guest experience.
And I think that comes down to their spend. When you start talking to a property manager, hotel owner, management company about where they should spend their budget money, they have to be able to relate and equate the responsiveness and the technology capabilities of the organization to that guest experience. Otherwise, other things are going to have to compete more robustly with budget dollars, I think. So I think that's all part of it, that it has to be very well explained exactly what it does give them from a return standpoint, so that they can then justify the investment in the kind of technology that they need to improve that guest experience and improve those reviews and get more people staying there.
So you say a big driver in being able to use this technology to more rapidly get tickets done, and whether it's a ticket of somebody realizing that they need more towels, whether it's a bathroom issue that needs to be addressed, whether there's something wrong at the pool, whether somebody needs help with bags, whether hotel airport shuttle, all of these things. And I think it's not so much that guests expect perfection, it's that if they catch anything short of perfection, they generally want to know that it's going to be resolved quickly. And this seems to be a key to being able to improve the communication to get the resolution time dramatically improved.
Well, listen, we all know things are going to go wrong, right? That's never the issue. We know things are going to break. We know things are going to happen that aren't necessarily within the procedural parameters of the way you want it to go. But it's how people fix it that matters. It's how fast they respond. It's how fast they fix things that it comes down to. And remember, we're not just talking about voice. So when you are inclusive of all the pieces of technology that go into these things, whether it's video, voice, data, access control, all of the different pieces and parts that go into wireless technology. And the one solution that might be able to bring all of those to bear at the same time, those are all going to have that major impact on the safety, the security, the satisfaction of the overall guest experience.
Yeah, that single device seems to be a huge issue. If somebody's carrying around a different work device for two-way radio, a different the device that they're used for closing out tickets, the likelihood of them forgetting or losing a device or one breaking or seems to be a huge potential time savings, efficiency savings, and just driving up and improving the guest experience. What about security, safety applications? Given what the world just went through with the pandemic and just physical security concerns as a whole, what do you think hotel operators should be thinking of with improving the perception and the actuality of guest safety on their properties?
I think there's there's certainly a number of things when you're looking at security overall. To Mike's point, when you're talking about video and voice, right? The voice allows you to relay the incident, but you got to have actionable intelligence as well. So when you're looking at video, I look at the COVID-19 situation, right? And being able to do thermal cameras, like what a difference, right? Being able to, instead of having to put a thermometer to everybody's head, being able to sit there and put multiple cameras in a huge entryway, and people come and go, and it's way less intrusive. But at the same time, you're able to identify the folks that had a high temperature. So there's a number of things like that, and being able to get that actionable intelligence. It's going to, when we talk about being more efficient, it's one thing to have 500 cameras at your hotel. It's another thing to have 500 cameras with workflow triggers, so that if a patient leaves or if a guest leaves a bag sitting idle for too long, it's captured on the video. It's a box is drawn around it to draw somebody's attention in the control room to it, and then maybe an alert is sent to a radio that basically lets that security officer that's closest to that know that, hey, there's a bag sitting in this area that's been sitting there idle for 2 minutes. Or if you've got somebody that's trespassed from the property, being able to do, facial recognition and, the artificial intelligence that goes with that, and being able to basically say, hey, this person has trespassed from the property and now they've showed up, this camera caught them here. So you take a snapshot of it, you send that to the device of the security officer that's responding. And now they have a picture. They don't just have a name, they have a picture of the person they're looking for. I mean, it's very powerful.
All of this helps to address the staffing shortages in hotels and helping people get more work done, cover more ground with less, and improve the guest experience and improve the safety. So this has been terrific. I'm so glad we got a chance to sit down and talk about this today. I know our viewers, listeners, and readers that are managing hotels should find a lot of value with this as well. Been speaking with Chaz Elliott from EMCI Wireless and Mike Humphreys from Consult Communications. So glad that you tuned in today to the Wireless Communications Explained podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wireless Communications Explained podcast. To get notified about new episodes, subscribe at wirelesscommunicationsexplained.com or wherever you like to consume podcast episodes, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. And if you found this episode helpful, please leave us a 5-star rating and tell your friends.